If you've been following Formula One, you know that things can change in the blink of an eye. One race can make or break a driver's career, and in the case of Sergio Perez, the Brazilian Grand Prix might have just sealed his fate. Red Bull's star driver, who's been with the team for years, found himself in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. As rumors swirl about his future and the possibility of being replaced, Christian Horner, Red Bull's technical director, dropped a bombshell. He claimed Perez had no reason not to fight his way through the field and collect crucial points, something Max Verstappen has been known to do with ease. But as we've seen, sometimes things don't go according to plan. So what went wrong for Perez in Brazil, and why is his spot on the team suddenly looking more uncertain than ever? At the Brazilian Grand Prix, Perez was handed the chance to turn things around. After struggling for much of the season, he requested a change in his car's chassis, hoping it would help him recover his form. But instead of the expected improvements, the results were underwhelming. Perez qualified 13th for the sprint race and could only finish in 8th place after 24 laps. That was a huge disappointment, especially since his teammate, Max Verstappen, was making waves on the track. Verstappen, who had started 17th, managed to fight his way to the front and clinch his first victory since the Spanish GP. It was an extraordinary performance, and it only highlighted how far Perez had fallen behind. Perez's performance in Brazil was a sharp contrast to Verstappen's remarkable drive, and it didn't help that Perez was unable to score points while Ferrari and McLaren moved ahead of Red Bull in the constructors' standings. Even with Verstappen serving a 5-place grid penalty for the race, Perez failed to capitalize on the opportunity to help the team gain valuable points. Christian Horner, Red Bull's team principal, acknowledged that Perez had struggled, calling it a difficult race, and mentioning that an early spin had left him with little chance to recover. The race was an important one for the team, but instead of making up ground, Red Bull lost ground to its competitors. Horner did try to remain positive, saying that Perez had put in a strong performance during the sprint race, but the Grand Prix had just not been his day. However, with each passing race, it's becoming more evident that Perez's future at Red Bull is hanging by a thread. The team, which is known for making bold decisions, might be nearing a point where it's ready to make a change in its driver lineup. After the Brazilian Grand Prix, the pressure on Perez only intensified. With rumors about a possible exit from Red Bull gaining traction, everyone was wondering what would happen next. Christian Horner, Red Bull's technical director, was blunt when questioned about Perez's performance. He made it clear that he hadn't seen any technical issues with Perez's car. There was no mechanical failure that could explain why Perez wasn't able to match Verstappen's pace through the field. So if it wasn't the car holding him back, what was it? For Perez, this was the moment where his future at Red Bull seemed to be at a crossroads. Despite his long-term contract, the team had no choice but to consider alternatives if he continued to fall short. When asked whether it might be time for a driver change, Horner didn't rule anything out. He acknowledged that everything in life is subjective, implying that Red Bull's decision would ultimately come down to the facts. If Perez couldn't turn things around, the team might have no choice but to make a change. Horner also addressed the team's struggles in the Constructors' Championship, admitting that they had failed to capitalize on opportunities in recent races. While Verstappen's performances were consistently at the top level, Perez's inability to score solid points had hindered Red Bull's bid for a dominant position in the standings. As things stood, McLaren and Ferrari were holding strong, and Perez's poor showings weren't helping Red Bull's efforts to extend their lead. It's clear that the team expected more from Perez, especially considering his experience and the support he'd received from the team. But Red Bull wasn't just sitting back and waiting. The team had already begun looking at potential replacements for Perez's seat, signaling that they were preparing for the possibility of a driver change. For example, one notable figure seen in Red Bull's hospitality during the Brazilian GP was Franco Colapinto, a rising star with immense potential. While there were speculations that Red Bull was eyeing him for a future seat, it was clear that Colapinto had caught the attention of the team. He wasn't the only one, though. Liam Lawson, who had impressed as a reserve driver last season, was also on the team's radar. Lawson, who had been filling in for Daniel Ricciardo earlier this season, had shown his talent in his limited race appearances. He earned points in his 2024 debut and finished ahead of Perez in Brazil, which certainly boosted his chances. The more Lawson impressed on track, the more it seemed like he might be the one to replace Perez in the near future. Despite Perez's long-term contract with Red Bull, the team was actively exploring its options. The situation was becoming increasingly critical, and it seemed like a decision was looming. Would Red Bull stick with Perez, or would they opt for one of their younger, more promising talents like Colapinto or Lawson? With Red Bull actively looking at potential replacements for Sergio Perez, it's clear that the team's future decisions will depend on both Perez's performances and the strength of the new candidates in the lineup. As mentioned, Franco Colapinto has been gaining attention. The 21-year-old Argentine driver has shown promise and is highly regarded within Red Bull's talent pool. While Perez's future at Red Bull hangs in the balance, Colapinto has managed to keep himself in the conversation as a possible option for the second seat. Colapinto's performances in Formula 2 and other racing series have caught the eye of Red Bull, and it seems that the team is ready to act on this interest. Despite being on a long-term deal with Williams, Colapinto's rise in the motorsport world has made him one of the most talked-about drivers in the paddock. Some speculated that his connection with Red Bull could be a stepping stone to a promotion, but it was unclear whether Williams would allow Colapinto to leave mid-contract. The team, however, seemed open to negotiating a deal that would facilitate his move, and with Red Bull's desire to secure the best talent available, the pressure to make a decision was mounting. But as Red Bull weighs its options, another name keeps cropping up in the conversation: Liam Lawson. The young New Zealander had already impressed the team in 2023 when he replaced Daniel Ricciardo, delivering strong performances on his debut. He continued to show his potential in 2024, even scoring points in his debut race of the season. Lawson has earned praise for his composure and performance under pressure, which has led many to believe that he might be the natural choice to step into Perez's seat if a change is made. What stands out about Lawson is his ability to adapt quickly to the demanding environment of Formula 1. He may not have the same extensive experience as Perez, but Lawson has showcased maturity and talent that has led Christian Horner and the team's management to seriously consider him as a long-term option. His performances in Brazil, where he finished ahead of Perez in both the sprint and the Grand Prix, have given him a significant advantage in the battle for the seat. Although Lawson has not yet been officially confirmed as Perez's replacement, the young driver's progress in his limited F1 appearances has given him a strong case. The fact that he's already outperformed Perez in key races this season has further fueled the speculation that Lawson could be the driver Red Bull turns to. Lawson has shown that he has the mental fortitude and pace to be competitive, even against more experienced drivers like Perez. The decision now lies with Red Bull, and it's not just about talent, it's about timing and strategy. The team is in a unique position where they have two strong candidates to fill the second seat, and both bring different qualities to the table. Colapinto's raw talent and promise as a future star, and Lawson's immediate competitiveness and confidence make for an interesting dilemma for the team. For now, the only thing that's certain is that Red Bull has no shortage of options, and Perez's future will depend on how he performs in the remaining races of the season. As Red Bull weighs its options, it's becoming clearer that the team's decision will not only affect Sergio Perez, but also have a significant impact on the rest of the Formula 1 driver market. With both Franco Colapinto and Liam Lawson emerging as strong contenders for the second seat, it's clear that Red Bull is looking to build for the future, while also ensuring immediate competitiveness. But the situation is far from simple, and it's not just about picking the fastest driver. For Red Bull, the challenge isn't only about performance, it's about continuity and stability. The team has a history of being aggressive in its driver selection, but the stakes are higher than ever. The addition of a new driver alongside Max Verstappen could shift the team dynamic, and Red Bull will need to ensure that their drivers work well together to maintain their strong performance across both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. This is a delicate balance, and the last thing Red Bull wants is internal conflict. Franco Colapinto, as much as he has impressed, brings a whole new set of challenges. The young Argentine is still building his Formula 1 experience, and while his talent is undeniable, moving him into a top-tier team like Red Bull could put pressure on him to perform at an incredibly high level right from the start. There's no denying his potential, but Red Bull might be wary of rushing him into such a high-profile role without seeing how he handles the intense expectations of F1 racing. However, even though Lawson has the experience, the question remains whether he has the pace and racecraft to compete alongside a driver of Verstappen's caliber over a full season. Red Bull will need to make a tough call whether to promote Lawson and give him a chance to prove himself, or go for someone with a different skill set and a more long-term approach, like Colapinto. Ultimately, Red Bull's decision will come down to what they believe will keep them at the top of the sport for years to come. They have two solid options: each with their own strengths. If the team values experience and consistency, Lawson might be the logical choice. But if Red Bull believes in nurturing future talent, Colapinto could very well be the driver they take a chance on. Whatever the decision, it will not just shape Red Bull's lineup for 2025, but could also have far-reaching consequences for the F1 landscape as a whole. So what's next for Sergio Perez? Will he hold on to his seat, or will Red Bull turn to a younger, hungrier driver to partner Verstappen? Time will tell, but one thing is for sure: Red Bull is not a team that waits for things to happen. They make things happen. And if Perez can't turn his form around, the team won't hesitate to make the necessary changes to keep them on top. As we move toward the final races of the season, all eyes will be on Red Bull and their decision-making process. Whether Perez stays or a new face joins the team, we're in for an exciting conclusion to an already thrilling season. What do you think? Should Red Bull take a risk with Franco Colapinto, or does Liam Lawson deserve the chance to prove himself alongside Max Verstappen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.